Let's follow the money for where your school gets its money in three parts. How we got here, the model we use now, and the problems left to hammer out. It starts with a state constitution which clearly states it is the paramount duty of the state to make ample provision for the education of all children, regardless of race, color, caste, or sex.
Ample means not just adequate, considerably more than just adequate.
That's Tom Ahern, an attorney whose lawsuit redefined education in Washington. For decades, schools complained they were underfunded, filling the gaps with local tax dollars. An inequitable system where property-rich districts get a better education and poor districts get a worse one.
That argument makes sense if
Ahern represented two families and a consortium of school leaders accusing the state of failing its constitutional obligation. At the top of that lawsuit, the McClearys.
I'm hoping that the Supreme Court realizes that we're running out of time and that we need action now, today.
Stephanie McCleary's son was in the second grade when this all started.
I went to his high school graduation before the case was over. That's how long this dragged on.
But they'd go all the way to the state Supreme Court and win. It becomes known as 2012's McCleary decision, and it says the state wasn't doing its job. The court fined Washington $100,000 every day for more than 5 years until it could come up with a plan to stop underpaying teachers, allowing classes to become too big, and relying too much on levies to fund schools on the local level.
Our Constitution places a high premium on equality in that sense and equity.
Representative Sharon Tomiko Santos heads the Education Committee in Olympia.
The court basically said, when you have a school district that's doing that, then the state is shirking its duty because there's nothing more basic than having a qualified teacher in every classroom.
In 2017, the state came up with a new formula that poured billions of dollars of new funding into education, which put a halt on the McCleary fines. Here are the broad strokes. The formula sets standards for what sort of resources every school should get, then ties funding to their enrollment. So the more students you have, the more money you get. After McCleary, school districts must report to the state how they are spending state dollars. But at the end of the day,
we send the money out. The way it gets spent is totally within the discretion of the local jurisdiction.
Number 11.
Everyone gets enough to fund their schools, and districts still get to decide how to run their schools in theory. So, does it work? State educators say this system is better than what it used to be.
Pre-McCleary, it was always a struggle. It felt like we were always trying to keep our head just barely above water.
Teacher salaries have risen to become the fifth highest on average of any state in the country. According to U.S. Census data, Washington is among the top 20 states for spending per kid. But union representatives say schools are still short funds for transportation, paraeducators, and federally mandated special education services.
They have to use local dollars or state dollars in order to cover the requirement in special ed for that one-to-one para. That gets really, really expensive quickly.
Declining enrollment is forcing schools to make tough decisions under this model, like consolidating schools in Bellevue.
To close a school is shocking for a community. It's hard to recover.
And a post-COVID world has state lawmakers asking if the state's current formula is in fact the best way to serve our kids.
We know that learning can take place anytime, anywhere. And so how do we measure whether or not our students are learning?
School districts can still use local tax dollars to a point to fund extra programs or activities. That's called enrichment. In the last biennial budget, the state marked more than $27 billion for education spending, over half of its budget. The dollar amount went up in the next budget by another billion, but the percentage of the state budget dedicated to education dropped from 51% down to just under 48%.